They say betrayal hits like a freight train, but let me tell you, mine started with a drawer. Yeah, a stupid little drawer in the kitchen, stuck halfway open with a takeout menu wedged just wrong. That's how it started. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just trying to find a battery. And instead, I found the edge of a hotel key card. Room 416, the Delman. I stared at it like it might blink first. It wasn't mine. And if it wasn't mine, it could only belong to one other person in the house, my wife, Marissa. Now, before you jump to conclusions, let's rewind a bit. Marissa and I had been married for 7 years. Solid years, or so I thought. We were that couple people called stable, which is just code for boring but safe. We did meal preps on Sundays, fought over thermostat settings, and agreed on what kind of dog to get even though we never actually got one. We were routine with a capital R. Until we weren't. I picked up the key card, turned it over, and found nothing. No date. No name. Just cold, plastic silence. So I asked her about it that night, casually, over dinner. You ever been to the Delman? She didn't miss a beat. For a conference once, I think. Why? I said nothing. Just nodded and went back to my mashed potatoes like I hadn't just caught my stomach sliding into my shoes. Thing is, I could have let it go. Should have, maybe. But something in her voice, it wasn't the words. It was the way she didn't even blink when she lied. You know someone for almost a decade, you learn their rhythms, their tells. And Marissa? She blinked exactly 3 times when she was nervous. She didn't blink at all that night. I started watching after that. Not in a creepy, peering through the blinds kind of way. Just sharper. Her smiles were too timed. Her laughs didn't reach her eyes. She suddenly needed air a lot more than she used to. And me? I folded laundry like it was going to testify in court. Then came Tuesday. The drawer. The key card. And me standing there, holding 7 years of routine like it had a crack running right down the middle. That was the day everything changed. I waited 2 days before going to the Delman. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to walk in with calm rage instead of hot-headed suspicion. Rage makes noise. Suspicion listens. The lobby was exactly what you'd expect from a mid-range business hotel, neutral carpets, jazz covers of pop songs, and a front desk clerk who looked like he dreamed of better uniforms. I slid the card key across the counter. Found this in my car, I said with a friendly lie. Trying to remember when I stayed here. The clerk checked the number. Room 416. Yes, that key was active last Friday, she said. 2-night stay. Checked out Sunday morning. I nodded like it was nothing. Thanks. Checked out Sunday morning. Marissa told me she was at her sister's, helping pack for a move. Her sister lives in Des Moines. The Delman is in our city. I took the elevator up, pretending like I belonged. The doors opened on 4, and I walked the hallway with the slow, deliberate pace of a man watching the floor for landmines. Room 416. I stopped outside. No sounds. No echoes of laughter or sin. Just a plaque on a door that had already seen the worst of me. I turned to leave, but the door next to it opened. Looking for someone? The man asked. He looked early 40s, wearing one of those fleece vests that say, I drink whiskey and call interns buddy. He had the kind of face you forget even while you're still looking at it. I shook my head. Wrong floor. But then he smiled, like he knew something I didn't. She left her scarf, he said, like we were on the same team. Red one. I didn't answer. He chuckled, low and smug. She said her husband was clueless. Guess she was wrong. That's when I knew. It was him. The man in room 416. He didn't know who I was, but I knew everything I needed to. I walked away. Silent. Measured. My fists were clenched in my pockets, not from the urge to strike him, but to hold together the pieces of myself that had just split wide open. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even curse. I just walked. Because revenge? That needs a steady hand. After that hotel hallway encounter, I stopped sleeping properly. You'd think finding out your wife is sneaking off to hotels with a Patagonia-wearing cliché would set off a dramatic chain of events. Nope. It set off spreadsheets. See, I'm not the kind of man who yells or breaks furniture. I'm the kind of man who organizes, who plans, who builds a case with timestamps, receipts, and a timeline so airtight it could suffocate a lie. I started small. First, I installed a backup router. Quietly rerouted the home Wi-Fi through my laptop. Every device she used, her phone, her laptop, even her tablet, got filtered through a private log. Then came the social media. Burner account. Fake name. Followed her from the shadows like a ghost in a tailored suit. She didn't notice. People never notice ghosts. What I found. Dinner reservations on nights she claimed to be too tired to cook. A spa appointment 2 weeks ago, booked under her maiden name, charged to a visa I didn't even know she had. Pictures posted by the other man's company at a corporate retreat. And there she was, blurry in the background of a group shot, standing too close, laughing too freely. I printed it all, folder by folder, neatly labeled. I wasn't collecting evidence. I was gathering dignity. Every page was a step toward reclaiming something I didn't even know I'd lost. One night, she noticed the printer tray full of papers. "What's all this?" she asked. I smiled. "Just organizing. You know me." She laughed. "Of course I do." And that was the first time I realized she didn't. Not anymore. Maybe never did. She kissed my cheek and went upstairs. I stood in the kitchen, listening to her footsteps fade, and opened a new tab on my laptop. Search bar, divorce attorneys. Discreet. No consultation fee. No rage. No tears. Just chess. And I had just moved my queen. Funny thing about betrayal, it doesn't explode. It erodes. Slowly. Quietly. The way smiles shift just a little too late. The way "I love you" starts sounding like a formality instead of a feeling. Marissa's smile had changed. I didn't notice it at first. Too subtle. Too civilized. Like she was still trying to maintain the illusion that we were fine, but somewhere beneath the surface, her affection had grown tired. And I'd become background noise. Wallpaper. But now? I wasn't looking at her like a husband. I was observing her like a scientist with a clipboard. It started in the mornings. She'd walk past me, kiss the air somewhere near my cheek, and mutter "morning" without eye contact. Her phone always glued to her hand like it was in 4-line for validation. She smiled at that thing more than she smiled at me. And I took notes. Mental ones. She didn't drink coffee anymore, too dehydrating, apparently. But I saw the Starbucks receipts in our shared email inbox. I started cross-referencing locations and timestamps. Pattern recognition, a skill I'd perfected over a decade in project management. She went jogging every Sunday now. Same time. Same track. But when I drove by one morning, just to verify, no jogger in sight. Her car was parked, sure. But she was nowhere near the trail. 30 minutes later, I saw her. Walking out of a cafe near the business district. Hair perfect. No sweat. Her running clothes barely creased. And there he was again, fleece vest, khakis, the walking TED Talk. Holding the door open for her like they were rehearsing domestic bliss. I didn't confront her. Why would I? A storm doesn't warn the valley before it floods it. That evening, she came home with a new perfume. Said she'd gotten a sample at the mall. Citrus with a hint of musk. Said it made her feel young again. I said it smelled nice. I even smiled. Let her think she still had me wrapped around her finger. Because now I had a lawyer. Her name was Lillian Farrow. Sharp, calm, and wore glasses like they were part of her personality. We met twice, once in her office, once over lunch at a Thai place I used to go with Marissa back when we were still us. "I don't want to destroy her," I said, stirring my ginger tea. "I just want to leave clean." Lillian smiled. "Nobody ever leaves clean. But we can leave first." She'd already started drawing up papers. The kind of papers that came with clause hidden under clauses. Financial disclosures. Custody clauses for the house, not kids. We didn't have any, and thank God for that. I couldn't imagine explaining to a 6-year-old why mommy goes jogging with a man who smells like sandalwood and betrayal. At home, Marissa started getting bold. That's the thing with guilt. It has stages. First comes secrecy. Then defensiveness. Then entitlement. I saw her swipe open her phone at dinner, smile at the screen, then set it down face down, like it was something sacred. She used to talk about her day. Now, she avoided eye contact like it owed her money. "You're quiet tonight," she said once, twirling pasta she barely touched. "Just tired," I replied. "Long week." She nodded. Took a sip of wine. "Maybe we should take a trip," she said. "Something to reset." I almost laughed. "Almost." "Sure," I said. "Where to?" "Anywhere. Somewhere warm. We've been in a rut lately." "A rut?" "Oh, darling. This wasn't a rut. This was quicksand with throw pillows." But I agreed. I played along. Let her believe she still held the narrative. She even showed me a few resort websites. Picked places with couples massages and champagne brunches. I bookmarked them. Because the more she thought I was still invested, the more careless she became. 2 nights later, she left her laptop open. Rookie move. Her messages were still up. Not just texts, email threads. Calendar invites. Photos. all tucked neatly into a folder labeled Project Eden. Creative. Eden, as in paradise. A new beginning. A fresh start with him. He had a name. Robert. Of course. Sounded like a man who corrects wine waiters and calls minor league baseball real grit. He booked a cabin. Secluded. Modern. View of the lake. The same weekend she told me she was heading to a work retreat. I took screenshots. Saved them to a secure drive. Labeled everything. Dated it. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. I was going to wait until the ink on the divorce papers dried, until she'd signed away half her rights in a haze of guilt and overconfidence. Let her dig her own grave. And the best part? She still thought I was clueless. That weekend, I cleaned the house. Lit candles. Made her favorite pasta. She came home from work, looking flushed and happy. Still humming that same off-key tune she used when she felt in control. You look nice, I said. Just tired, she replied, slipping off her shoes. Then she paused. You cleaned. I nodded. Figured we could have a nice dinner. She smiled. A real one. Brief, small, almost grateful. I smiled back. Because her smile had changed. Again. Not confident. Not smug. This time, it was something else entirely. It was nervous. She felt the shift in the air. The slight chill under the warmth. The eye of the storm. And deep down, maybe she knew, her little game? It was almost over. It came in a gold envelope. Thick paper, wax seal, the kind of mail that says, we want you to pretend everything's perfect for 3 hours. I found it propped on the counter next to a bottle of Cabernet and Marissa's signature note style, black ink, breezy cursive, no punctuation. Dress nice, Friday at 7. It'll be good for us. Good for us. That was a phrase we'd used in marriage counseling, alongside other gems like let's reset the narrative and try active listening. It usually meant doing something she wanted while pretending it was mutual. So, of course, I RSVP'd yes. And I wore the navy blazer she once said made me look diplomatic. I assumed she meant boring but tolerable. The host was her friend Natalie, one of those eternally wine-tipsy types who posts inspirational quotes between passive-aggressive jabs at her ex-husband. Their house was a Pinterest showroom. Edison bulbs, reclaimed with everything, and a dining table that probably cost more than our first car. Marissa walked in like she was auditioning for a perfume ad. That new citrus musk scent trailing behind her like a warning. She looked good. She always did. That was the trouble. When someone looks like they belong in a highlight reel, you start ignoring the blooper footage. Natalie greeted us like we were the homecoming king and queen. You too. Finally. Everyone's inside. Everyone. That included Robert. I didn't know he'd be there until I saw him by the wine rack, pouring something from a bottle like he'd opened it himself. He was in a gray suit, tieless, like a man who wanted to look formal but feel casual. He had the kind of posture you only develop after being told you're impressive for most of your life. He saw me and froze for a half-second. Just long enough. I smiled. Not wide. Just enough to say, I see you. Marissa didn't notice. Or pretended not to. She drifted off into the circle of guests like a politician at a fundraiser, laughing too loudly, touching arms that weren't mine, making everyone believe this was just another Friday. I sat next to a couple from the finance world. Polished, polite, and entirely unaware that the man across the table had been sleeping with the host's best friend's wife. Or maybe they weren't unaware. Maybe that was part of the dinner theater. I played my role. I told jokes. I passed the salad. I complimented the lighting. I even toasted when Natalie raised her glass to long love, strong connections, and second chances. Marissa looked at me then. That flicker of a glance. And I raised my glass. I steady. Because nothing says, I know everything like matching someone's lie with a perfectly timed smile. Then came the conversation. What's everyone doing this weekend? Someone asked. Robert cleared his throat. Actually, heading out of town. Cabin trip. Bit of a recharge. I didn't look at Marissa. She didn't look at me. The silence around her was immediate. Charged. Like someone had unplugged the room. Natalie laughed. Alone or? Robert waved it off. Just me. Fresh air. No signal. You know the drill. No one pressed him. But I saw the tension bloom in Marissa's posture, her spine stiffening just a little, her fingers tightening around her wine glass. It was beautiful. After dinner, people started migrating to the patio. Fire pit, soft jazz, more wine. Marissa wandered toward the kitchen, probably to regroup. I followed. Slowly. I found her by the sink, hands braced against the counter, breathing like she'd run a sprint in heels. She didn't hear me at first. You okay? I asked, gentle. She jumped a little. Yeah, just warm in there. I nodded. Robert's heading to a cabin this weekend. Sounds nice. A beat. Yeah, she said. I guess. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Ever been to the mountains around Delran? I asked casually, opening a bottle of water. She hesitated. No, not since college. I sipped. You should go sometime. Real peaceful. Great cell reception, too. That's when she looked at me. Really looked. And for the first time in weeks, I saw it. Fear. Not a lot. Just a flicker. A tiny crack in the mask. She swallowed. Why are you saying that? I smiled. No reason. She left the room soon after. I stayed behind, leaning against the counter, letting the weight of my restraint settle in my bones. I could have confronted her, could have made a scene, but that would have given her the spotlight, given her control of the script. No, this was better. This was theater, and I was letting her sweat under the stage lights. Back at the patio, I watched her through the flames of the fire pit. She wasn't laughing anymore. She was quiet, perched on the edge of a chair, fingers to her lips, mind clearly somewhere else. Robert didn't approach her. He knew better. The man could read a room, probably had to do it often, considering how many he ruined. When we left, she didn't speak until we hit the freeway. That was nice, she said, voice brittle. Yeah, I replied. Very illuminating. She looked at me, sideways. What does that mean? I kept my eyes on the road. Means the food was decent. The company was informative. Silence. Long, heavy. She turned toward the window, and I saw her reflection in the glass. Tight-jawed. Wide-eyed. Calculating. Let her wonder. Because now the fear was in her voice. There's a silence that only liars recognize, the kind that hangs between two people when one knows the truth and the other thinks they're still safe. That's what we lived in now. That silence. It stretched through breakfasts, commutes, brushing teeth side by side. Marissa would hum occasionally, like the sound might shield her from the static creeping between us. But it couldn't. Not anymore. Because I was counting down to the cabin. Saturday morning. She said she had an off-site strategy retreat. A whole weekend of whiteboards and workshops, allegedly. She packed light. Too light. A duffel bag, her favorite scarf, that citrus perfume. I watched her fold lingerie with a care she hadn't applied to our marriage in years. You sure you've got everything? I asked, sipping my coffee. She didn't look up. Yeah, it's all here. I nodded. Enjoy the brainstorming. Tell your manager I said good luck surviving without you. She smiled, but it didn't touch her eyes. Will do. And then, just like that, she was gone. Not with a kiss. Not even a goodbye. Just the sound of the door closing behind her like a chapter shutting on its own. I waited exactly 17 minutes, long enough for her to get through town to the highway. Then I stood, stretched, and went to the coat closet. Pulled out my own bag. Packed days ago. I didn't follow her, not directly. That would have been too obvious. No, I took the long way. A side road that wound through hills and small towns, past bait shops and gas stations that sold more cigarettes than fuel. The kind of route no one noticed, which was exactly what I wanted. Because this wasn't about catching her in the act. I already had all the evidence I'd ever need. This was about finality. The last chapter. The curtain drop. By noon, I was there. Same cabin. The one I'd found weeks ago, buried in her calendar app, cross-referenced with a receipt I pulled from our shared Gmail. She was good at deleting things. Not good enough. The place was tucked into the woods like a secret. Trees on all sides, gravel driveway, wraparound porch. Picture perfect. Romantic. Remote. And there they were, her car and his. Parked side by side like they'd been lovers too. I didn't approach. I didn't knock. Instead, I drove 2 miles down to a scenic overlook I'd scouted ahead of time. Pulled out my binoculars. Yes, I brought binoculars. Don't laugh. A man prepares. From my perch, I had a clear view through the trees. Just enough to see the porch, part of the living room window, and the outline of movement. They were inside. Close. Her laugh floated through the woods like smoke. That same high-pitched one she used to save for me. I didn't flinch. Instead, I pulled out the envelope from my glove box. Inside? Divorce papers. Neatly signed on my end. Served with a side of financial exposure and just enough legal traps to make Robert wish he'd stuck to single women. I had no intention of delivering them in person. That wasn't my style. No, I had a courier on standby. Local guy. Big truck. Reliable. Paid in cash. He just needed a text with a pin drop, But not yet. First, I needed the goodbye. Because here's the thing, revenge isn't loud. It's not fists through drywall or screaming matches in parking lots. Real revenge is clean, quiet, like a scalpel. And mine? It was almost surgical. At sunset, I drove to a small Airbnb I'd rented 20 minutes away. Plain little cottage, Wi-Fi spotty, heat loud. But it had a kettle, and that's all I needed. I made tea. I waited. At 8:12 p.m., her phone pinged, shared account. Remember? A new photo went to her cloud. Her and Robert, sitting in front of a fireplace, glasses of wine in hand. Caption, our little secret. She still hadn't deleted me from the cloud. Rookie mistake. I smiled. Not because of the betrayal. That part stopped stinging a while ago. No, I smiled because that photo was all I needed to file for at-fault divorce, cite alienation of affection, and make sure she walked away with little more than that duffel bag. By 10 p.m., I was texting the courier. Gave him the pin drop. Told him to deliver the envelope to the cabin by 7 a.m. sharp. Knock once, then leave. No explanation. Just impact. Then I turned off my phone. Not for drama. For peace. And as I lay on that unfamiliar mattress in the cold silence of rented comfort, I didn't feel anger, or heartbreak, or loss. I felt done. She had her secret. And tomorrow, she'd get mine. Morning arrived like it had something to prove, sky streaked with fire orange, air sharp enough to slice through breath. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands wrapped around a cup of instant coffee, watching steam curl upward like it was trying to slip away from the world. Outside, birds were doing their morning declarations. Meanwhile, I was about to drop a truth bomb the size of 7 years and one shredded vow. At 6:57 a.m., my courier texted. On site. Approaching now. I didn't respond. I just set the phone down and turned up the kettle's flame. The noise helped. So did the tea. The cabin was only 20 minutes away. But I didn't need to be there. The point wasn't to watch the impact. The point was that it would hit. Clean. Anonymous. Like justice with a return address nobody could trace. The courier was good, ex-military, retired early, now did runs for legal firms and process servers. No questions, no mistakes. He had one job, hand-deliver a sealed envelope to the woman who once said I was the safest thing that ever happened to her. Too safe, apparently. 7:04 a.m. Envelope delivered. Knocked once, per instructions. Woman answered. No words exchanged. Perfect. I could picture it. Marissa in a sweater, no makeup, hair still smelling like him. Opening the door expecting room service or maybe another moment of soft infidelity. Instead, a man in work boots and a ball cap handing her the one thing she didn't expect, consequences. Inside that envelope were signed divorce papers and an attached list of itemized evidence. Printouts of her texts. Photos from the cabin window. Calendar entries. Even a few screenshots from her messages with Robert, just to remove all doubt. She couldn't deny it. Couldn't deflect it. Couldn't cry her way out of it. She could only read it and realize the game was already over. That morning, I drove to town, grabbed breakfast at a diner that still used paper menus and called everyone Han. Eggs, toast, black coffee. The kind of meal you eat when your appetite hasn't quite caught up to your reality. The waitress looked at me like I was a man on the other side of something. She wasn't wrong. I turned my phone back on at 9:12 a.m., 33 missed calls. 17 texts. 4 voicemails. All from Marissa. I didn't check the voicemails. The texts were enough. The progression was predictable, classic 5-stage grief in SMS form. 1. Confusion. What is this? Why are you doing this? 2. Denial. This isn't real. You're not actually filing for divorce. We can talk, Elian. Please. 3. Anger. How could you be this petty? You stalked me? This is insane. 4. Bargaining. Let's meet. Just talk once before anything's official. Don't do something we can't undo. I'll come home today. 5. Panic. Please respond. Please. I need to talk to you. You don't understand. It didn't mean what you think. I'm scared. Please, just please call me. She called 6 more times while I watched the steam rise from my second cup of coffee. I didn't answer. Because here's what she didn't understand. This wasn't about rage. This was about math. 1 lie. 2 people. 3 months of deception. 4 steps ahead. And now? 0 chance of reconciliation. By noon, I was back at the Airbnb, bag packed, car running. My lawyer had the next steps lined up. She'd handle the fallout. My name would come off the lease. The accounts were already separated. Utilities, passwords, mail forwarding, all scheduled. Marissa's digital footprint was clean too. I removed her from our shared drive, the Netflix account, even the smart thermostat. She'd find out the next time she tried to adjust the heat. I wasn't being cruel. I was being thorough. At 1:02 p.m., Robert called. That was unexpected. Blocked number, but I recognized his voice instantly, calm, corporate, a voice that knew how to sell comfort like a product. Hey, this is Robert. I think we should talk. Man to man. I didn't speak. I didn't mean for this to happen. None of it was supposed to look. I know how it looks. But people make mistakes. I think we can find a way to. I hung up. If you're going to break a man's life open, don't ask him to help you hold the pieces. And now they were holding the pieces. Together. I imagined the scene. Her in a panic, him suddenly realizing this wasn't some sexy secret anymore. It was paperwork. Courtrooms. Reputation. Money. Maybe his wife, if he had one, was now involved. That's the thing about affairs. They start in shadows but always end in floodlights. By the time the sun began to dip again behind the trees, I was back on the road, headed nowhere in particular, just away. Windows down. Music low. Silence riding shotgun. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt finished. And sometimes, that's enough. When people break trust, they always underestimate the aftermath. They think it's going to be one hard conversation, some tears, maybe a counseling session, and a dramatic gesture. What they never expect is the silence that follows when someone truly lets go. The fallout wasn't loud. It was quiet. Efficient. Marissa returned home to an empty closet, a cold mattress, and a lawyer's number waiting in her inbox. She left me 6 voicemails that first night, cried through the third one, whispered my name like it was an apology in the fourth. The 6th? That one was just breathing and the sound of something shattering in the background. A glass, maybe, or whatever illusion she had left. Robert didn't call again. Smart man. My lawyer served his firm with a formal notice. Not a lawsuit. Just a potential one, enough to make his HR department twitch. I don't know if he still has a job. I didn't care enough to check. Mutual friends reached out. Some cautiously. Some indignantly. Some offering half-hearted sympathies wrapped in moral ambiguity. Relationships are complicated. Maybe you both made mistakes. I blocked them. Let them stew in their own fragile diplomacy. I wasn't interested in mutual blame when I was the only one playing by the rules. I moved out of the city 2 weeks later. Found a place with space and quiet. My lawyer finalized everything. No drawn-out hearings. Just signatures and a stamp. Marissa didn't contest it. She couldn't. 3 months passed. The divorce was finalized. I had a new apartment, a new routine, and for the first time in years, a life that didn't feel like it was shrinking. That's when the letter came. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name. Inside was 2 pages of careful ink. Marissa. She didn't beg. Didn't plead. She just reflected. Apologized, in the way people do when they've finally run out of ways to justify what they've done. She wrote about how she used to look at me like I was her anchor, and how, somewhere along the way, she started mistaking the anchor for a cage. Said she felt restless, not because I lacked anything, but because she didn't know how to sit still with happiness. Said Robert wasn't worth it. Wasn't interesting. Wasn't kind. Just convenient. She ended the letter with a line I'll never forget. I thought I needed more than safety. But it turns out, safety was the most sacred thing I ever had. And I broke it. I folded the letter and burned it in my sink. Not out of spite. Out of closure. Because some apologies aren't meant to be answered. They're meant to be released. You've probably been waiting for this part. The revenge. The moment I struck back. But here's the thing, real revenge isn't some explosive finale. It's not slashing tires or torching wedding photos. Real revenge is letting someone live with themselves. Still, I left her something. Not violent. Not illegal. Just poetic. I scheduled a delivery to her office, discreet envelope, no sender name. Inside? A framed printout of the photo she took in that cabin, the one captioned, "Our little secret." Below it, in crisp black ink, one sentence. Secrets have expiration dates. I never saw her response, but I heard from someone later that she transferred departments shortly after. Different building. New floor. Word was, she looked tired all the time. As for me, I slept better than I had in years. Sometimes, the best revenge is just moving on before they're ready for you to. Letting the silence scream louder than any argument ever could. letting the empty space you leave behind remind them of everything they lost. And every once in a while, when I pass by a hotel that looks a little too polished, or see a scarf that reminds me of citrus and lies, I smile. Not out of bitterness, out of peace. Because I walked through the fire and didn't scream. And that's how you win.